has decided to make this information public because of this. Quote, the official had grown alarmed after being unable to find two important reports on Cohen's financial activity in a government database. Some financial records related to Michael Cohen missing from the database. Here's what's going on here. Banks have to file something called a suspicious activity report, if SAR, if they suspect that something hinky is going on in somebody's bank account, something that looks like it might be money laundering or fraud or some other kind of criminal conduct. It doesn't get you arrested, but the bank has to file a suspicious activity report. They go to a law enforcement database, and then law enforcement can access that database and use it as a source for leads to go investigate you if it turns out any of this hinky stuff your bank thinks you're up to might turn into a criminal case. According to Ronan's reporting tonight, quote, these reports are routed to a permanent database maintained by FinCEN, which is the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. That database can be searched by tens of thousands of law enforcement and other federal government personnel. That document about Michael Cohen that was released last week, according to Ronan Farrow's new reporting, was based on one SAR, one of these suspicious activity reports that was filed at the First Republic Bank, which is the bank where Michael Cohen's little shell company, Essential Consultants, had its bank account. That one suspicious activity report included transactions between September 2017 through January of this year. But according to Ronan's source, that's not the only one. There are two other suspicious activity reports about this same account at this same bank concerning this same company. And those two suspicious activity reports have apparently mysteriously disappeared from what is supposed to be that permanent database. Quote, these two reports detail more than $3 million in additional transactions, triple the amount in the report released last week. Which individuals or corporations were involved remains a mystery. But according to the official who leaked the report, these SARs were absent from the database maintained by the Treasury Department. This official, who has spent a career in law enforcement, tells Farrow, quote, I have never seen something pulled off the system. The system is a safeguard for the bank. It's a stockpile of information. When something isn't there that should be, I immediately became concerned. That's why I came forward, meaning that's why I leaked the report we all saw last week. Quote, whatever the explanation for the missing reports, the appearance that some but not all had been removed or restricted troubled the official into releasing the report last week. Why just those two missing, the official said. The official told Ronan Farrow that he or she feared that the contents of those two reports might be permanently withheld. The official said, quote, that is what alarms me the most. So, according to this new reporting, there are three suspicious activity reports, three SARs, filed by that bank, where Cohen has the bank account for that little company that paid off Stormy Daniels that mysteriously had all that other money flowing through it through all those corporate entities. There were three SARs. Just one of them produced all that news and all that scandal last week. The reason that one SAR was released is because the two other reports have gone walkies. Somebody knew that there were supposed to be three reports and only one was there. And that someone, that law enforcement official, decided to leak that one report to draw attention to what was going on here. If those two SARs disappeared from this supposedly permanent government database, why is that? That database isn't supposed to have stuff missing from it. Those missing reports are why this law enforcement official broke the law, himself or herself, to leak that information about Cohen's bank records to the public. Here's how Ronan's piece ends tonight. Quote, the official said, we have accepted this as normal, and this is not normal. Things that stand out as abnormal, like documents being removed from a system, are of grave concern to me. Of the potential for legal consequences, the official said, quote, to say that I am terrified right now would be an understatement. But the official said, quote, this is a terrifying time to be an American, to be in this situation, and to watch all of this unfold. Joining us now is Ronan Farrow, contributing New Yorker writer who broke this scoop tonight. Ronan, back so soon.
Good to be here again, Rachel.
Thank you. Congratulations on this. Let me make sure that I understand this correctly. Your source says that he or she was the source of the information that was reported last week, which has since been substantially confirmed.
Correct.
Based on a suspicious activity report from Michael Cohen's bank, which showed all of these previously unknown payments to Michael Cohen, into and out of that account, it should be known.
Yes.
Your source says the reason he or she did that was because of concern about other similar reports that are gone?
Yes, and we can absolutely report that those other two that you referenced that are now unaccounted for exist. They are internally referenced in the third suspicious activity report.
Okay.
So that is not in dispute. What is in dispute is
let's slow that down. So the one that came out last week, the documents that we saw last week were based on a suspicious activity report. That report, and we haven't seen the original of that. We've only seen a derivative document that was publicized by this lawyer last week. That original document references the existence of two prior reports.
Exactly.
So we know they exist, but they're not in the database.
They exist. They should be tied to the same identifier numbers in the system.
Okay.
When you search for Cohen's name, they should come up in the system in the normal course of business. They do not.
So how can you tell me how your source discovered this?
You know, what I can say is that in general terms, those tens of thousands of law enforcement and other personnel who have access to the FinCEN system, that's the technical term for this database, would routinely do these kinds of searches, even based on seeing in the news that Michael Cohen is being investigated for various things and they might want to check that it's in their jurisdiction or not, or if someone else is handling it. That part of it is routine.
We contacted about a dozen sources and experts that we know in this field as soon as your report came out, trying to figure out the importance of what you had brought to the public's attention tonight. And what we asked people specifically was, do you know of any previous example of a SAR, of a suspicious activity report, existing, but somehow being pulled from or hidden within the database, not being evident in the database? Every single person we talked to told us they know of no other example of this.
And Rachel, we went through a very similar process. We talked to 7 experts, people who had been involved in leadership positions around this database, and again and again they said this is highly unusual.
The question that, the sort of follow-on question for me, upon learning that this is apparently unprecedented, or at least as far as we can tell unprecedented, is it possible? Is there a technical, logistical means by which a SAR can be disappeared or removed from that database?
So I want to point out a couple of caveats that are important for people as they digest this news.
Yeah.
One is that we are not reporting that there's foul play here. Indeed, amongst those experts, some of the first and most plausible speculation we received was maybe Special Counsel Mueller or the Southern District of New York or any jurisdiction that has a stake in perhaps lording over a particular piece of evidence came in and said, please restrict this. But I think what is true regardless, Rachel, is this is a murky area. There's not a lot of transparency or accountability. And we may never get clear answers as to how politically motivated it was if these were indeed yanked from the system.
Right.
And we did find obscure, regulations and data retention policies that say technically they reserve the right to do this, but everyone says it never happens. And prosecutors we talked to and law enforcement personnel we talked to said they didn't know of any set procedure by which you could achieve such a thing.
So theoretically, it could be the prosecutors in the Southern District of New York. It could be the special counsel's office saying, we know this suspicious activity report exists. We don't want it on the database because this is so sensitive. We can't have tens of thousands of law enforcement personnel having access to this information. Theoretically, that's a possibility, but from your reporting and from our reporting today, nobody knows of any example of this ever happening in any previous case.
That's right.
Fascinating. Ronan Farrow, contributing writer at The New Yorker, who broke this scoop tonight. I never thought that this stuff would be so fascinating, but I'm like literally on the edge of my seat to find out.
We all know the intricacies of FinCEN that we haven't ever heard on the program.
And all I want is more. Ronan, thank you.
Rachel.
Congratulations.
Always a pleasure.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
This is